Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa bihi nasta'in ala kulli umuri dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa habibina wa syafi'ina wa nuri qulubina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa salim. ونتعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدنيا مشرب السيف الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدنيا مشرب السيف الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك العلم لدنيا مشرب السيف الهني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So continuing into our first chapter, rules of purification. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Babu Tahara. So he says here, لا يصح رفع الحدث ولا إزالة النجس إلا بما يسمى ماء فإن تغير طعمه أو لونه أو ريحه تغيرا فاحشا بحيث لا يسمى ماء بمخالط طاهر يستغني الماء عنه لم تصح الطهارة به. Okay, first and foremost, right, coming into this chapter, right, so say bab tahara, right, so when you come to fiqh chapters, you come to kitab, you come to bab. So it's basically kitab tahara or bab tahara, right? So kitab or bab, it is basically something that lughatan, the word kitab, the word book, lughatan, it means something that gathers something together in it. Right, it's something that gathers something together in. I hope you can write down right now what I say, because I'm not writing down with my pen. I'm not able to. So you write down what I say, right? And then shara'an, it is a name, right, for a collection of knowledge that speaks about the same things, right, and it tends to have chapters and sections, and branches, of knowledge within it, as a kitab, okay, or a bab. Okay, so bab is of one topic. Okay, so now going into the word tahara. Tahara in the language, it means نظافة النظافة وخلوص من أدناس الحسية ومعنوية. So tahara in the language, it is to clean, to cleanse, and to be free of any blemish, right? Blemish or dirt, whether it is physical or whether it is rhetorical, right? Whether it's literal or whether it's rhetorical, right? So for example, physical dirt on yourself, and for example inward sins, right? Sins or diseases of the heart, right? So tahara encompasses inward and outward when it comes to its linguistic meaning. However, when it comes to the sharia meaning, it is so write down what is the sharia meaning of tahara. The sharia meaning of tahara, it is to remove hadath. Okay, the sharia meaning of tahara, so the linguistic meaning is just to cleanse, to remove any blame or blemish, right? And then the sharia meaning is to remove hadath or to remove najas, right? Najas, or so remove to lift hadath or to remove najas, or to do what is in the meaning of them, of these two, or on the outward acting of doing them, right? So what does it mean? So here we have the first one. It says so it says here, to lift hadath or to remove najas, right? And it says here, and what is of their meanings. So of their meanings, for example, tayammum, and to do istinja using stones, because tayammum, you're not washing anything, you're not physically cleaning anything for tayammum, nor are you, when you use stones to istinja, you're not removing any najis, right? There is still najis there, right? But it is in the meaning, and the meaning of it is that you are cleansing yourself, you're removing the hadath, or on the image of them, right? On the outward image of them, for example, to do wudu, to renew your wudu, because you don't have hadath anyway, you have no hadath, so there is no removal of hadath is happening with the renewal of wudu, but it's on the same outward form. Similarly, when it comes to washing the second and third time for a wudu, the first time already remove the hadas, right? So the second and third time doesn't remove anything, right? But you're just doing it, right, because it's sunnah. So on the outward manifestation of it, right? How we understand, eh? Okay, and it is and in tahara, right? It is all actions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he taught us through Rasulullah the actions of tahara. Okay, so the first thing that we see here, right? It is not permissible or valid to lift a state of ritual impurity or remove filth except with pure water. The pure water here is called mutlaq, right? Ma ila bil ma is a ma. It's called water, like regardless of like it is pure water. So what is pure water? Pure water is water that is mutlaq. What is water that is mutlaq? Write down water that is mutlaq. I'm so sorry that today I have no pen with me. I cannot type out anything on my notes. So I hope you all write down. As I point through, I hope you all write down. Alright, so what is mutlaq? It is that it is what is not is not pure water, is water that is not abundant, or connected to something else, right, that might remove the name of the water. Right, so for example, so for example, water that is pure in itself, how it was created, how Allah created this water on this earth. So like for example, water from wells, water from the sea, from the river, right, water from rain and hail and snow, water from springs. These are all pure water. It's all water that is mutlaq, right? So if the characteristics of water from where it was created, if it changes in taste, color, or odor, right? Taste, color, or odor of the water has changed drastically, that you can no longer call it pure water anymore, because it's changed drastically by an addition from something to an admixture which is pure. And it's not najis, because if it's najis, then the whole thing becomes najis anyway, right? But it's a pure admixture which could have been avoided, meaning that it's not and so it's that this admixture is something that could have been avoided. Like for example, it's not something from the environment or something from the container, but something that could have been avoided. So once the water is changed in its color, smell, or taste, then the water is can no longer be used for purification. Okay, so like for example, if someone has like pure water from the well, and then they put in a lot of sugar inside. So the water looks like water, smells like water, but when you taste it, it's so sweet. It's not water. So can you use that water for wudu? No, you cannot. Right? Similarly, you have like a pill of water, and you drop a few drops of essential oils in the water. The whole water smells like lavender, right? Like lavender, right? The whole thing. So the smell completely changed drastically, right? Can you use that water for wudu? No, you cannot. Similarly, if someone had dropped a few drops of ink in water, the whole water turned red, right? So the smell is water, the taste is water, but the color is not water, so it cannot be used for tahara as well. All right, so here he says, as for estimated changes, right, they carry like changes that are taqdiri, right? That is basically like something that you can estimate, like for example, very minor changes has the same ruling as obvious changes. So changes whereby it's not so obvious, but because for example someone threw into water non-scented rose water, and it was getting mixed with pure water, right? So you wouldn't be able to tell the rose water that has been mixed in, right? So an intermediary estimation will be used as a benchmark as to whether the water had changed drastically or not, right? So here there is a whether it has been changed drastically or not, right? So here it is the same ruling, right, as water that has been changed, that you can observe for it to be changed drastically. All right, so here right, so on the hour you see that there's no change, right? But you know that a lot of the rose water fell into the water, for example, because the rose water had no smell to it, but it fell into the water. So here there is it is counted as as water that has been mixed with other mixtures, and it cannot be used, right, it cannot be used for tahara. So the intermediary estimation is like the taste of rumman. Like rumman is pomegranate, right, or the smell of or like smell, right, or the color of honey, and these are all the intermediary positions. Okay, a little change that happened within pure water does not remove the purity of water. A little bit, a small amount of change that is not perceivable, right, does not affect the purity of water. And it, the status of mutlaq, is not changed, is not affected by changes that is caused by being left for long periods of time, or by the soil or the moss, and changes that are affected by its container, and the place where the water is stored, right, or through the medium whereby it flows. It's not affected by any of these changes, right? So if this happens to the water, the water being left there changes, because of the environment, it does not remove the purity of the water. The water can still be used, right, for tahara. And it is that for this water is not affected by that is not affected by changes to the water that is caused by insoluble substances such as wood, oil, sea salt, right, and leaves falling from the trees. So things that are insoluble, and things that are part of the environment, and they're not soluble, they will not affect the purity of water. All right, alhamdulillah. Okay, alhamdulillah, we're going on to the next part on offensive water. Right? So basically, what is makruh, and what is water that is makruh, right, for us to use. Right? So he says here, يكره شديد السخونة وشديد البرودة والمشمس في جهة حارة في إناء منطبع في بدن دون ثوب ونزول الكراهة بالتبريد. Tamam. So it is offensive, it's makruh, right, to purify oneself in wudu or in a ghusl using water that is too hot and too cold while being too hot, while being too cold. It is offensive to purify oneself using mushammas water. Mushammas means water that has been exposed to sun rays in a hot region in a metal container, and the water is still hot. So it's a hot region, condition, metal container, and the water is still hot. It's offensive to use on the body, but not offensive on the clothes, because it can cause diseases on the body. It's longer offensive when the water has been cooled, right? So because the harm is longer there. All right. So straightforward, pretty straightforward chapter. Right, so it is the metal container is the one that has caused for more harm, right, to enter into the water. Okay, alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. Okay, so it's makruh, right? It's makruh, right? But it's not haram to use. If someone does use this water for their tahara, then it's just that they're harming themselves, right? But there's no harm for them to do so. Okay, chapter on water used for purification, which is called musta'mal, water that has already been used. So remember, in Safin Najah, we went through quite for some time explaining about water that is musta'mal. So it says here, فصل لا تصح الطهارة بالماء المستعمل القليل في رفع الحدث ولا إزالة النجس. It is not valid to purify oneself using a small quantity of musta'mal water to, number one, lift and state of impurity, and number two, to remove the filth, right? Because the water has to be pure. And when it comes to removing najis and when it comes to removing hadas, you have to use pure water. You're not allowed to use any other water. Right? You cannot use musta'mal water. When the musta'mal water looks completely pure, but it was used previously to remove the hadas of wudu, so therefore it cannot be used again to remove the hadas of wudu for the musta'mal water. Okay. Right. So for example, let me just read the footnotes here. Major changes to water to soil are still considered to be mutlaq. So even the water changing color, or smell or taste, because of the soil that it's in, it does not affect the purity of the water. The salt obtained from seawater is considered to be mutlaq. But if the same salt, if you get from the sea, because the sea is a container of the seawater, right? For the seawater, so there's the salt in the seawater is pure. It doesn't affect the properties of water. However, if the same salt, regardless of the amount, is mixed into water that is pure from the wells, from rivers, right, then the second water now is considered to not be right, so the second water, right, it is considered to be mutlaq, even though there are changes to the state of the water, right? And here the seawater is pure in itself and can purify others. So seawater is pure in itself and can purify others. Okay. Ibn Hajar mentioned that these exceptions are forgiven if they are not placed in the water intentionally. Right? They are only forgiven if they are not placed in water intentionally. Okay, so we're going to the musta'mal water, right? So if someone were taking ablution, puts his hand into a small quantity of water after washing his face, the keyword, after washing his face, without making the intention of using his hand as a scoop of al-ikhtiraf, right? Ikhtiraf means using the hand as scoop. The word is here, ikhtiraf. Using the hand as a scoop, then the remaining water becomes musta'mal because his hadas of his hands has come off onto the water and he has contaminated the water with his hadas. Right, so I'm gonna read through the entire thing first, then I'm gonna explain to you in a while about what is musta'mal. Alright. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Right, so it is permissible to use musta'mal water for recommended sunnah purification, such as washing for the second and third time, so you don't waste water. Alright, so let's explain this entire musta'mal thing. Alright, so when you begin your wudu, let me just draw somewhere. Here, I think I'll draw here. Okay. Oh, I cannot draw. See, I forgot. I'm not able to draw. Okay, it's okay. I'm just gonna explain. Okay, I'm just gonna explain. All right. So when it comes to you can do your own drawings. Okay. So when it comes to wudu, I draw like a chart. When it comes to wudu, right, you begin by washing your hands. Right. Then you do your mouth, do your nose. This is all sunnah, and there's no hadas to be spoken about for all these places. Okay. And then you come to your face. When you come to your face, you make your intention to do the wajib of wudu, right? To perform wudu. So when you wash your face, you do your intention, and the hadas on the face falls off with the water. Okay, that is the first water that is musta'mal. That's the first water in your wudu is musta'mal because it carried hadas. Okay, so now the door is open, right, for the hadas on your hands to be removed. So if you just wash your hands, the hadas on your hands would have fallen off with the water, making that water musta'mal. Okay, all right. However, before washing the face, the hadas of the hands is not possible for us to remove the hadas in the hands, right? Because you need to wash because of tartib, of the condition of tartib when it comes to wudu. Right, there has to be tartib. So you can only remove the hadas in the hands after you've taken off the hadas from the face. Right, so if you put your hand into a container before you even begin any wudu, before you wash your face, right, then it doesn't do anything to the container at all. There's no effect on the water in the container at all. But however, if you put your hand in the container after you have washed your face for wudu, then now the hadas in the hands can come off. Right, so by putting your hand in, you have contaminated the water. Right, with your hadas. You understand. So which is why if you want to use your hand as a scoop before you wash your face, right, then you have to intend. You have to intend. Ikhtiraf. I'm going to use my hand as a scoop and not just to put my hands there. So Allah will not cause for the hadas to fall off from your hands or into the container. Okay, so the thing about musta'mal water is that if hadas has fallen into a small amount of water, that water is counted to be musta'mal, and musta'mal water cannot remove hadas, right? But it can be used for sunnah it can be used for sunnah washings, like the second and third washings, is possible. Okay, how about mutanajis? There's water that is mixed with filth, that mixed with najis becomes mutanajis water, and it's like, so فصلا ينجس الماء القليل وغيره من المائعات بملاقاة النجاسة. Okay, I want to mention one thing about small amounts and large amounts of water. Right, so for large amounts of water, it is only affected if whatever is added to it changes the properties of water drastically. Right, it's not drastic, but apparently not drastic. Apparently, it means you can perceive the change in the water. So that's for large amounts of water. However, if you cannot perceive the changes in water, right, that is still counted to be pure water. However, a small amount of water, and there's a definition of what is small and what is large, right? A small amount of water, even if there's no perceivable change, then the water is still not pure. It's not counted to be pure, right? So if whether it's najis or non-najis, if there's no perceivable change, right, the water is, if it's najis, if there's no perceivable change, the water is still mutanajis by the very fact that the najis fell into the water. However, if it's a pure substance, only when there is a perceivable change and then the water has changed from its smell or its taste or its color. Alright, so here, if small amounts of water and other liquids, so when it comes to non-water, right, things that are not water, like honey or syrup or coffee or tea or whatsoever, right, for other fluids, no matter how much you have, even if it's a large amount, right, just the very falling of a najis into the substance makes the entire thing with the najis without any khilaf and without any difference of opinion, right, about that. Right, so Bismillah. Right, so you see here, except with the following conditions, the filth that cannot be seen by a naked eye is too small. So basically, any filth that falls into the water or into fluids, right, not water, and will make the entire thing mutanajis, meaning it has a form of, it is contaminated with najis. But however, we have leeways and we have exceptions. They're called ma'fu anhu. It's a ma'fu anhu, meaning with leeways and exceptions. Okay, well, so he says that is removed from this, right? It's not counted. It's filth that cannot be seen with the naked eye or is too small, right? So for example, one fur of the cat, one cat fur fell into water. You can't see it, right? So then it does not affect the purity of the water, even though cat fur is najis, right? So it's better to use mutlaq water for second and third washing, right? So here, carcass which the blood does not flow when it is cut unless it changes the state of the water, or if it was thrown intentionally into the water. For example, a dead fly. So a dead fly has no blood flowing. If a dead fly falls in the water, is the entire water najis now? Like if I have my coffee and a fly comes and the fly dies in my coffee, is my coffee najis now? The answer is no, because the fly has no flowing blood, right? And you didn't put it there on purpose; it just fell in, right? So number three, and the biggest size would be a lizard. So lizard is a bigger size. Thereafter, all that is bigger than a lizard, they will all be counted as najis if they fell into the water. Number three, if the mouth of a cat that has filth in it. So, for example, the cat had eaten something with blood, right? Like eaten an animal it caught and there's blood on his mouth. Then the cat disappears. So there's a possibility the cat went somewhere and drank and then from a large quantity of water and caused for his mouth to be clean. So when the cat comes back to you and the cat drinks from your small water, that you're not worried because there's no najis on the mouth of the cat, right? There's there is mouth one who there is forgiven. You didn't see the cat wash its mouth, but you assume because it went away long enough. Okay, number four, the same applies to a toddler who has filth on him, after which he disappears from sight, and then there's a possibility that he washes that part of the body that he came back. So like a toddler who had najis on his hands, then he went away for a while. Then it could be that he washed it off, then he came back, it could be clean. So you can assume that it was clean. A small amount of smoke or vapor fumes from the filth. Right, so if you feel you smell such a strong stench of urine or feces, somewhere, then you're afraid that it will stick onto your clothes. The smell will stick onto your clothes. It is not filth. Right? It is ma'fu anhu. Is forgiven. A few strands of hair of inedible animals such as pigs and except pigs and dogs. Right, so we mentioned about the cat hair. So three hairs of cat hair on yourself is excusable. Is excused. A small amount of dust from the manure of animals is excused because you're unable to, especially for those who work in this kind of situations, unable to avoid the dust. Right, so for them to pray, you can't say they can't pray all the time. No, they can pray, and it is forgiven for them. The dust from the manure of animals that does not make the wet body parts filthy. Right, so again, of the manure of animals, of those who work with animals, right, and they always expose to the najis that is with the animals, inshallah. Okay, so now he's going to go into quantities of water. Right, so he says, when the quantity of water is 2 qulla, the 2 qulla is an amount, so we're going to is at the bottom there, 2 qullas is approximately 219 liters. If the cut of fly mosquito in the blood, but it does not flow because of the size, right, smaller than lizard, inclusive of a lizard. Okay, so this was amount for qulla. Right, then it does not become impure when filth was to fall into it, except if the water changes in its taste, color, and smell, even if the changes are minor. There's a ruling of a lot of water. A lot of water is more than 2 qulla. So again, qulla is 219 liters. It's quite a large amount. Right, so if any najis falls into it, it does not make it najis unless it changes the properties of the water. Right, if it changes, as mentioned above, disappear either by itself or when the water is added to more water to make it even more diluted and larger, then the water can become pure again. You can bring the water back to purity again. Right, this is a different case if the changes that were caused by the filth is removed by adding musk or soil, and it's not become pure, but you're just basically masking over the properties of the najis that was in the water. So you gotta put something to go and try and mask it, right? It's not permissible. Okay, water that is constantly flowing has the same rate water that is still, right? So a large amount, small amount, right? Whether it changes or not, same thing as well. Okay, same ruling as this kind of water. Okay, 2 qullas, right, is approximately the same as 500 pounds in the Baghdadi measurement. Difference is which are less than more or less of 2 pounds is acceptable, but not when it's more than 2 pounds. There's some technicalities about long ago as to how they used to measure the water. So now we just know in liters, right? Inshallah, it's easier. And the measurement of 2 qullas using a volume cube with its length, that width and depth is being 1.25 arm span approximately. So now they give dimensions of how the container should look like to ensure you always have 2 qullas. Right? And then the last part of this section is that if the container is cylindrical, right, and it gives the measurements as well for a cylindrical container. And then last part is it's prohibited to purify yourself using water that is specifically wakafed for drinking. So if someone spend money and wakaf something for drinking, it's haram on you to actually consume that water.